Hey guys, so today we're going to dip our toe into a program called Adobe Audition. And when I say dip our toe, I mean we're going to start by doing something that is somewhat applicable to how we use Premiere and what you might be able to use in future assignments, just in case this might be useful. We're going to do a kind of a broad stroke view of the various tools that Adobe Audition has. Adobe Audition is a sound editing program. It works in direct conjunction with Adobe Premiere and with Adobe After Effects. And you can basically use it to sort of edit sort of uncompressed raw audio. Now, the reason why I have this old video up, if you recall, this video is one of the first things we did with Premiere. You can use your version of this if you still have it available. If you want to download it from D2L, I have unlocked that folder. If you want to use any other video you can, so long as there's sort of like audio there in it. But you can always use this one as well. And we're going to be kind of editing the audio on a video. I'm going to be editing the audio on this one in various useful and not so useful ways, just to show us the different things that we can use with Adobe Audition. So before we get started, go ahead and open up Adobe Audition. You should be able to open it up. If you don't, if you aren't able to open it up, then obviously we'll work around that, but we've had some difficulties working with waveform audio files in the past, and we'll discuss what that means in a second here. So when you open it up, you might see something like this. If you don't see something like this, I'm just going to go Window, Workspace, Default, and if you don't see what I see, you can go to Window, Workspace, and then you can say Reset to save layout. So just so we're all on the same page, we're seeing the same things. All right, so with Premiere open as well, you can go ahead and grab your video that you've got. I'll go ahead and close this right here. And grab that video you've got and let that load in. Give that a second to conform. And what I'm going to do is, before I do anything over here on the timeline, I'm going to right-click on this, and you should see down towards the bottom of the little right-click menu, Edit in Adobe Audition. And when you say Clip, it's going to extract the audio and open up Adobe Audition, and you'll see the audio in its just sort of raw form. Now, if you look back on Premiere, you'll see we've got a importing video sample, and if I were to sort of hover over that, we can say it says imported video sample audio extracted.wav. WAV for waveform audio file. If you recall our lesson on file types, audio file types, that is the lossless form of audio compression. It's a sort of has the highest quality, but at the same time takes up the most space. And when you edit things, you can change things about it in a little easier way, and you don't have anything lost. Okay, so the first, and I would say most useful thing you could ever do to a piece of audio is make it clearer. Now, this is not so bad because I was really close to the microphone, but something about using the surface, sometimes you can get a lot of stuff like there was an air conditioner blowing at some point in this, and generally speaking, it's sort of you tend to have a little bit of noise here. So I'm going to play this a little bit. And you can kind of hear this little hissing noise. I'm going to get really close here. Now, let's just kind of look around this right here. When you open this up, you're going to see, of course, this right here. This is just all the different little sound waves. If you look over here, you can see we have this. This is the waveform editor, right? So this is like the sort of waveform viewer. We've got different kinds of ways we can view this right here. We've got our spectral frequency, and we've got our pitch frequency, and we can toggle those on and off over here by clicking these little buttons up here. But our waveforms, it just shows us the different levels. Now on this side, we've got essentially the decibels that these are at. This is essentially the level upon which they have been amplified, and we can raise those and lower those, and we'll explain how we do that in a second here. But just looking around here, we can see up here we've got this little what we'll call this sort of a navigator, as it were. This is a similar thing like this in Adobe Premiere, where if you look over here, we have these little handles. If I were to drag this in, these little handles that allow you to sort of zoom in or zoom out. It's the same deal up here. We've got these little zoom handles that allow us to get closer in, and you can see like this, for instance, this is where the timeline is, and you can see like the little red timeline up there as well. And whenever you zoom in, it always centers into, necessarily centers in here, but it always sort of tries to pull, or whatever it is you're looking at in the very center of your little waveform here. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to zoom in over this way. I'm going to sort of highlight this, and you see this little eye bar here, this little time selection tool. You can sort of click and drag and select, just any point in which there's no sound here, and you can hear this little hissing sound, this air sound. Now that's not too bad. It doesn't.
All right, well, hey, it's me, Mr. Lobello.
It doesn't necessarily like interfere too much with the audio, but it's enough to where if I were to say, for instance, amplify this, like for instance, there's some spaces over here that's a little bit not quite as loud as I want it to be. If I were to and you can basically select everything. If I were just to kind of pull this out all the way and just double click, you can select everything, and this little bar up here floats up. This kind of follows you around. If you hover over this little where it says dB for decibel, you could amplify this by pulling it clicking and dragging and pulling it towards the right, or you can attenuate it by clicking and dragging it and pulling it towards the left, and it'll sort of like lower in its volume and stuff. And you can only pull it up to about 15 decibels. And you can pull it down to just, negative, forever, essentially. But depending on how loud you want it to be, you don't necessarily want it to overload. If it goes too far, you notice how we have this one little spike up here that goes past the 230 mark. If it goes too far up, it's going to sort of overload it's not going to sound good. It's going to fuzz out, as it were, sort of lossy kind of sound there. So I might amplify this if you want to try amplifying it to see if it's not quite so loud. But as soon as I amplify this, it amplifies everything, including that little white noise. We'll call that white noise. That sort of a sound in the background here. Let me zoom in real quick, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. You see it's a lot louder now. So because of that little amplification, even though it's louder now, I'm going to see if I can't sort of click and drag this here. Select this. I want to get rid of that sound. So I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to find in my little selection, my little drop down menu here, this right here that says capture noise print. Now you notice I don't have very much selected. I've got probably less than a second selected. See right here, this is I guess this is 5 seconds here. So I'm not really sure. Let's see if I were to get really close in here. It looks like it might be about a second, maybe a little less or a little more. But around a second, not very long. So long as it's more than just a few frames or a few milliseconds, you should be fine. So find some space, and this is another good reason why you can give yourself some space to do this. So I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to say capture noise print. Click on that, and I can just deselect that. And once I've done that, I'm just going to right click and make sure I have this zoomed all the way out, and I'm just going to double click on everything and select everything. And then I'm going to go up here to Effects, and I'm going to find Noise Reduction and Restoration, and then I'm going to find Noise Reduction Process, or Control-Shift-P on the keyboard. And with that done, I'm going to listen to a little bit of this, and this is going to, I'm going to show you, yours might start off with a different level here. You might, like your noise reduction might start off somewhere around here at 50, and your noise reduced by might start somewhere around here at about 13 or so. But I'm going to play this.
So here. All right, well, hey.
And so if you listen to this, you can see it's you can listen to it with an on or off. So
it's me, Mr. Lobello.
If you click this little green button here, it'll turn off the effect.
And I'm here to use this as the example.
There's not a whole lot going on with this one, so I might pull up this this noise reduction by a little bit here, and you see a few of the little dots moving up and down. The little dot that kind of refers to the noise sort of frequency that you've selected. And if you pull this, back and forth, you can sort of increase how much it's done. So I'm going to press once again.
You use on our little Premiere Pro project, and we learn how to import both videos and photos, and we'll also learn a few more sort of odds and ends when it comes to using Premiere.
And so there, the effect becomes a little clearer. Now I've got this all the way up and all the way down. Now, and notice that it didn't affect it too much. If depending on the level of the noise, if the level of noise is too loud, the more you do that, it's going to start making your stuff sound a little robotic here. So be careful. It becomes it becomes sort of a waiting game, sort of like a balancing act. If the robotic sort of artifacts, the digital artifacts that sort of appear whenever you reduce the sound in such a way. So let's listen to this here.
So the first thing, even though nobody asked, I'm gonna.
So it sounds pretty good, but it sounds kind of tinny. So once again, depending on what,
I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about myself. I'm gonna give myself a little.
Depending on what you're looking for, you may want to have your noise reduction down a little bit. You want to have your reduced by down a little bit, but it sounds fine all the way up here. It sounds fine, a little bit less. Let's see.
Stop and then I'll start, and you'll see why in a second. My favorite movie, I think.
All right, so you just listen to it, and you just sort of choose what level, what noise reduction percentage you want, and what reduced by you want, and just press apply, and it'll apply that effect. All right, so another thing I noticed, and again, this could be a thing that that you see in your video, is that there's a few spots here or there where some noise kind of happens here. There's at the very beginning, for instance. Now I think I can probably sort of click and sort of move, by clicking and dragging over here and go to the very end here, the very beginning, and all right. There's a little cough there. Now, obviously, I would clip that out. But if I wanted to, say for instance, keep that part of the scene there and just to remove that cough, I could just select this bit right here, and I could go over here to Effects, and I could go to just Generate. I could just go to Silence, and it would just totally pull that out. Now, once again, let me just undo that real quick. Once again, go to Effects and click on Silence, and it would just totally remove that. And you could just use any point you wanted to. Like you just sort of select any bit right here, and once again, Effects, Silence, and that would just be gone. So.
All right. Well, hey, it's me, Mr. Lobello, and I'm here to use this ability.
Right, and it's just absolutely gone. Right. So if you want to find a spot to sort of silence, maybe a noise or something like that, maybe somewhere in the middle, go ahead and silence that. You can. If you wanted to, for instance, remove this echo, there's a bit of an echo going on here. So let me just sort of.
All right, well, hey, it's me, Mr. Lobello, and I'm here.
There's a bit of a reverb kind of going around the whole thing. So once again, I'm going to select this entire thing. There's a neat little tool you can use. Now, we talked about this when we talked about our sound editing. If I go to my effects, and I found over here my filter and EQ, this right here where it says we have graphic equalizer, all these different things right here. I'm going to find, I want to say parametric, maybe scientific. Yeah, parametric equalizer. Let's find this one. This is a good one. Parametric equalizer here. Let me just go back to default. All right, so if you click on this little drop down that says default, once again, you can kind of play this, and it's going to basically play everything. Let's see here. I'll pull this entire thing down here. See if I can't select everything while I have this open. All right, good. All right, so make sure you have the entire thing selected. So I'm going to play this, and what's cool about this is that you can sort of look down here. We have these different frequencies. Now, frequencies essentially refer to, how high-pitched or how low-pitched a thing is. And obviously, the lower the hertz, this is the sort of cycle between the waves. The wider the wave, the lower the pitch, and the higher the waves, the higher the pitch, right? So if you've got this sort of various things, you can tune in to different frequencies, and you can determine how soft or how loud they're going to be. So I'm just going to press play here, and I'm going to just sort of grab one of these little tools here. So look right here, you can notice them working here. So we've got L, right, 1. Right, and we can sort of drag them and pull them up and stuff like that. And now what's fun about this is you got this Q width right here. The Q width can be sort of pulled down to nothing, as it were. So pull this down to rather the Q width can be pulled up to where it's very narrow. So if you pull your Q width up to 20 or just as high as it'll go, eventually it'll narrow it down. So you'll only focus in on a single frequency here. So I've pulled this up, this one frequency up. And I'm not necessarily going to keep it there, but I'm going to focus on this right here. So if I press play, let's see here.
All right, well, hey, it's me, Mr. Lobello, and I'm here to use this as really the example video that you use on our little Premiere Pro project when we learn how to import and...
All right, so right there, you notice that like as I was pulling it out there, the sound started to get a little worse, and that's because I focused in on this one frequency, and having that frequency right here, in this case it's 922 hertz, having that one frequency be louder than everything else, made it sound kind of garbled and kind of gross. So I'm going to take that. I'm just going to play this some more, and you can kind of hear it with or without.
Videos and photos, and we'll also learn a few more sort of odds and ends when it comes to using Premiere.
So by virtue of that, again, we can probably even focus a little more.
So the first thing, even though nobody asked, I'm just going to tell you a little bit myself. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a moment to stop, and then I'll start, and you'll see why in a second. My favorite movie, I think, is the movie.
All right. So once again, I kind of noticed that the sound kind of getting a little bit weird once together. So I'm going to pull that straight down, and I'm going to play this some more. So that way, basically, this one little frequency here is sort of taken out.
Called Children of Men, which is a movie about a dystopian future where, for whatever reason, people can no longer...
It's hard to tell sometimes. You have to tune your ear to it sometimes. But whenever I listen to this, with and without the little equalizer put on, with the frequency pulled down here, this around 1,000 hertz, I notice it sounds a bit less echoey. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. So again, the equalizer being what it is, essentially is just trying to help kind of make everything sound better. All right. So just in terms of other effects that we've got, if you wanted to say, for instance, add an echo on there, you could by selecting everything here, and we can go to effects, and we can go down to reverb, and there's a whole bunch of different things we have. We have all these. My favorite tool, I think, would be Studio Reverb, because it gives you a lot of different options down in your little menu here. So I'm going to play this, and
Right, well, hey, it's me, Mr. Lobello.
I'll pause there, and I'm going to just choose. You can just choose these different different sort of reverbs here. Actually, I'm going to close this out. Let me go over here to Effects, Reverb. I want to say Surround Reverb. Here we go. There it is. This is good. Okay, so they have these different things that you can use. So for instance, I can choose like auditorium, and now it sounds like I'm in a full-size auditorium, or various different things here. I can find different things. So you can just kind of play, and
And I'm here to use this as really the example video that you use on our little Premiere Pro.
Let's look here. I wonder if...
project, and we learn how to import.
I'm not hearing it. Let's look here. Default presets and the most find. Cathedral full size. Here we go. Let's just play this. There we go. So this sounds like, if you could imagine, it sounds like. So I'm having it set to presets custom. So I'm going to go over here to where it says impulse, and I'm looking for various different things here. So if I look at, like for instance, large dome. Oh, I have preset default. And then maybe cathedral here, we can say. Very echoey. Deep well. Sounds like you're in a well. It's very neat. Lots of different options there. Open air studio, open air theater. So you can find something that maybe sounds kind of neat to you. Theater. Let's look here. I'll apply that for now. And then there's various other things you can do, but essentially, But the point of it all is that what's fun about this is that as you're doing this, if at some point I press save, and I go back over here to Premiere, and I sort of like pull this audio file that I had and sort of mute my other audio, you can kind of see this right here. What I'll do is I'll put the solo track here. So now everything else is muted. So let's look here.
Hey, it's me, Mr. Lobello, and I'm here to use this as the example video that you use on our little Premiere Pro project, and we learn how to import and both videos and photos.
Right, and so you notice that like it's changing as I do this. So let me just pull this off. Now I'm gonna undo what I just did here. I'm gonna undo this little thing, and then we can kind of see the difference here with what's inside. Once again, let me just save this. It does this live. So I'll just mute this for now.
And we'll also learn a few more sort of odds and ends
and then we'll mute this back down here.
When it comes to using Premiere. So the first thing that nobody asked, I'm just going to tell you a little bit myself. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a moment to stop, and then I'll start, and you'll see why in a second.
So you see how like already we've got, it sounds just so much better, even though we didn't do a whole lot besides just reduce the noise and then take out one frequency. But everything else beyond that, I would sort of venture to guess it wouldn't be necessarily that very useful. For instance, we can take all this under effects, and for instance, we could find down here, I want to say time and pitch, we can find pitch shifter, where in which case we could sort of lower the pitch here.
You'll see why in a second. My favorite movie, I think, is the movie called Children of Men, which is a movie about
So if you are in band, or you take piano, or you do any kind of musical instrument, you probably instead of semitones, you probably know half notes, right? As like half steps as opposed to whole steps. So essentially, semitones is moving from like C to C sharp instead of C to D, right? That's what that means, right? So if you're going up, you know, you can have it go up, and then you can play it.
In future, where for whatever reason people can no longer have babies, right? It's starring Clive Owen, and it's directed by Alfonso Cuarón. It's a really good film. I should check it out. My favorite book, my favorite series is Lord of the Rings.
And so you notice that it's very dramatic. Now, if I wanted to say, for instance, like tune something, if I wanted to say, for instance, take something down a step, and I wanted to like maybe make it sound a little more in tune, I could take the cents down here, where you know, a cent is essentially between, like, I think it's like from 0 to 100, you know, is a whole semitone. So whenever someone says you're 30 cents sharp, that means you're not quite a whole. You're somewhere between a note, so you're not even a whole note up. So for instance, if I were to, like, you know, play this, it would be almost difficult to tell.
Parts, like the central novel, The Two Towers, is my favorite novel. As far as TV shows go,
so it doesn't quite really show up there. But if, for instance, I wanted to like maybe make it a little bit lower here, you know, almost like I was doing some sort of like, you know, confession tape, if you recall that, from those of us who are in a level 2 class. But once again, oops.
You'll see why in a second. My favorite movie.
So that's a lot of fun, I guess. But so on and so forth. So here's the idea. Clean up the noise, right? Take down the echo a little bit. If there's anything here, just apply that equalizer. If you want to apply some sort of reverb, you're welcome to. If you want to lower the pitch, you're welcome to as well. If you want to explore anything else, I'm going to say over here. I'll go over here to FX, and I want to say there's probably an echo somewhere in here under reverb. If I go to like full reverb or something like that, special imagery, special, I want to say there's various things, radar metering, but there's oh, delay and echo. Here we go, echo. Let's do like a spooky echo. So once again, saving that, we can kind of see what that sounds like here. So you can see that it does some fun stuff by being able to edit it in the Adobe Audition window, and then being able to edit it here. That's right. So once you're done, I would see if you can't go ahead and just export this and use these settings here. Go to export, and when you do media, choose like this right here. Choose under H.264. Choose your mobile device 480p. That way we can kind of like keep the size down. It'll be down to like 20 right here. Now this right here is going to be an interesting thing as to whether or not we'll be able to actually export this. I'll be very curious to see that, but I'll just go around and listen and see who did what and stuff. So once you get that, cue it up or export it any way you can, and get that turned in as a video with the edited sound. All right, very cool. Can't wait to see you guys produce.